Hi there. It's me again. How are you? Hope everyone's well. So, while looking at the next gazetteer in the series, I came across something that I feel like I should take a moment to talk about because it's hard to get the context without it. Blackmoor. Blackmoor is one of the oldest settings ever for a role-playing game. It was a setting before there was really a codified D&D, and it was by Dave Arneson. And it is, rightfully considered one of the earliest examples of a campaign setting. Mystara is one of several places where Blackmoor becomes involved. It becomes involved as its own setting by itself, as the first fantasy realm or something like that was the name of the publication. And then there was also, around the same time, its involvement with Greyhawk. The Blackmoor supplement for the early, early D&D actually didn't have much about the campaign world. It had an adventure that sort of takes place there, and it had it introduced I think the monk and the barbarian, I believe. It's either the monk and the barbarian or monk and the assassin. I can't remember which, but it didn't actually have much setting information, but it did make it into some of the other books later on. When they got around to writing Mystara, and writing the known world stuff, before they actually came out with the Gazetteers, they said, okay, Blackmoor is the ancient past of Mystara. Like the super ancient past. And so, to understand its place there, it helps to sort of talk about that. The actual information on Blackmoor for Mystara is really only kept in module form. They didn't come up with a gazetteer for the ancient past or anything like that. And in fact, one of the things that will be a sort of a complaint about I have about the third gazetteer is, rather than tell you a lot of the information about Blackmoor when it starts talking about the ancient past, it says go read these modules. So that's a problem, and that's a problem born of the format. They just don't have a lot of pages to work with, so why rehash information that they already printed in an adventure? Here, just go buy that adventure. I get the reason why it's there, but it can be particularly annoying when said adventure is not in print anymore. So, I went and looked into the adventure in question, Adventures in Blackmoor, which is part of the DA series. It's the first DA module. Which you take characters from the modern Mystara, and through a magical inn, they get transported back to ancient Blackmoor, 3,000 years in the past. Which is, okay. I like time travel stories, so I'm kind of on board for that. The setup is super convoluted. And reading the background information sort of reminds me a lot of the differences between D&D now and then. For instance, Blackmoor is very much the house campaign world. This is the campaign world that he ran, that he played in. And you can tell by the little details. For instance, the tavern in question, they come back in, was layered with a bunch of enchantments to make it so that basically the barkeep couldn't be messed with. Now, this doesn't happen all that often unless you're dealing with a rowdy bunch of players. I've done something similar on occasion. I know other people have, where, look, I just want to have a place where I can give you info dumps and not have to deal with the repercussions of you randomly killing some barkeep or what have you. So the barkeep has the power to expel anyone from his bar, and there's nothing they can do about it, and they can be barred from it for life. And if you want to leave it, you have to have somebody pull you out. And I mean, there's a bunch of really silly things that probably don't make much sense, except in the context of this is a game master trying to adapt to players who maybe didn't behave, all that well at the table. And that's fine, like I said, I've done similar. Plenty of people have. But I think as time went on, adventures became much more, I want to say professional is maybe the term, but the backgrounds and such seemed less arbitrarily odd in that regard. Also, another thing that is different than is currently in vogue in D&D, the early inspirations for D&D involved a lot of science fantasy as much as anything else. Reading Jack Vance stories of the famous Vancian magic, you come across several points where it's clear that the fantasy world the guy is dealing with also has some sci-fi elements in it. And that's very much the case in Blackmoor. There are some sci-fi elements. The later modules even more so than the first one. But it's made clear that vast and terrible machines are responsible for the cataclysm that wipes Blackmoor out eventually. So there's that. But the later adventures, Temple of the Frog, which really is sort of vaguely frog-like beings that may or may not be somewhat alien, who use, alien technology like it was magic in their Temple of Doom. And then City of the Gods, which is the one that comes after that, where they have gotten even more super high-tech stuff from this even more advanced civilization that is found in the City of the Gods. It's all science fantasy stuff. And that is firmly implanted at the heart of Mystara. And when I get into the next gazetteer, I'll even show where it's in that gazetteer. But it is certainly an element in classic D&D, and in particular, the most classic settings. Greyhawk had it to a certain extent. Blackmoor definitely has it. It's an interesting difference. Those adventures, if you want to understand the ancient past of Mystara, because they don't actually cover too much of it in the gazetteers themselves, if you want to understand the super ancient past of Mystara, you kind of have to go find those modules. The DA series. It starts with Adventures in Blackmoor, which is not in print and is not in D&D Classics. I found a copy online that somebody had posted, but it would be nice if D&D Classics had it, for legal purchase, and, wouldn't feel quite as odd about using it. But Temple of the Frog, which is in print, or not in print, but is available at D&D Classics. And then there's City of the Gods. Those three detail the ancient history and can give you a further understanding of what comes later. Unfortunately, the gazetteers themselves, in several points, refer to adventures for your background information rather than give you the background information. And so it's worth noting that Blackmoor is important there. Now, beyond that, Blackmoor is important because it's one of the early organized attempts to make a setting. And Dave Arneson, even after he left TSR, kept trying to keep Blackmoor relevant. There have been a number of publishers over the years who have taken cracks at publishing Blackmoor stuff. Not just TSR, not just Wizards of the Coast stuff. But with varying success. It's absolutely certain that he was a well-loved game master as much as a game designer, and as much as we owe him in D&D, the people who played with him really appeared to love the games he ran. So, it's even if looking at the stuff now, you see the rough edges, it's also pretty clear that he had a lot of fun running it, and people had a lot of fun playing it. So, anyways, that was my brief note on Blackmoor as relates to Mystara. I do recommend that you go and try and find, copies of the Adventures in Blackmoor. I believe Noble Knight has it in print, though it is not super cheap. Like I said, if you look around, you can find the PDF of it and what have you. But, I thought it was worth talking about that before I dig into the next Gazetteer, because the next Gazetteer actually references the modules, the DA modules, and I thought I should at least talk about them and talk about how they involve Blackmoor and what Blackmoor's significance is. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. I will probably post something up tomorrow. I'm not sure what. I do have an event this weekend, so I don't know if I'll be posting this weekend or not, but we'll see. And I guess I'll talk to you guys later. Subscribe, like, share with all the people, and stay out of trouble.